The birth happens at night. It always happens at night, or at least that is how it feels, because birth pulls every conscious person in the camp into wakefulness regardless of the hour. The woman has been laboring since the afternoon. The elder has been beside her the entire time, hands moving with the confidence of someone who has done this more times than she can count. When the child finally arrives, the camp is quiet in the particular way that only happens when everyone is holding their breath at the same moment. The elder lifts the child, turns it, looks. The child is small, too small. The cry that comes is thin, present, but thin. The legs don't move the way legs should move in the first minutes. One arm pulls toward the body at an angle that the elder has seen before. She has seen how that story ends. She doesn't speak. She looks at the mother. The mother already knows, because mothers always already know, before anyone says anything, before any decision is made. She reaches for the child anyway. This is the moment that the question lives inside, not in a philosophy discussion, not in a modern ethics class. Here, in the dark, in the dirt, with a fire that needs feeding, and a tribe that will need to move in 3 days, and a mother whose body just went through something enormous, and a child who arrived into the world already carrying a weight the world didn't put there. What happened next depended on everything: the tribe, the season, the resources. The elders read of the situation, the mother's condition, how far the next water source was, how recently they had eaten well, how many healthy adults were available. There was no single answer, because there was no single world. There were thousands of tribes across hundreds of thousands of years, making this same assessment in different conditions with different outcomes. But some things were consistent, and those consistent things reveal exactly how early humans understood life, survival, and each other. The first thing the tribe did was wait. Not forever, but long enough to know. A child born small was not immediately a child who would stay small. A child born with a weak cry was not immediately a child who would never be strong. Early humans, living as close to birth and death as any creature on Earth, understood the difference between a bad beginning and an impossible one. They had seen both. They knew the signs. The elder's job in those first hours was not to make a decision. It was to read, to watch the child breathe, to feel the temperature of the skin, to watch whether the mouth sought what it needed, to notice whether, by morning, something had shifted. The tribe gave the child time because they had learned, across generations, that the first hours lied. Some of the strongest people in the group had arrived thin and loud and impossible looking. Some of the children who looked perfect at birth were gone before the next full moon. The body had its own argument to make, and the tribe had learned to let it make it before drawing any conclusions. If the child lived past the first days, if the breath steadied and the mouth learned and the eyes began to track, then the tribe's relationship with that child began in earnest. And here is where the story surprises. Weakness in early human groups was not a fixed category. A child who could not run was not therefore useless. A child who tired easily but observed everything was an asset of a different kind. The tribe operated as a system, not as a collection of identical units where every person had to perform the same function at the same level. There were hunters, and there were those who prepared what the hunters brought back. There were those who tracked and those who remembered. There were those whose bodies were built for physical endurance and those whose minds held the knowledge that kept the group alive across seasons. A child born with a body that would never be strong was not automatically outside that system. The question the tribe asked, not in words, but in the daily decisions about food and attention and inclusion, was not whether this child was strong. It was whether this child had something, whether there was a mind behind the eyes. Whether the hands, even if they would never pull a bow, could learn to do something that mattered. The children who were kept were worked with from the beginning. Not pushed toward what their bodies couldn't do, but pulled toward what they could. A child whose legs were wrong spent more time with the elder, learning the plants, learning the preparations, learning the routes the tribe had walked for generations, and the reasons behind every stop. A child whose one arm never worked the way the other did learn to track, to read the ground, to see what the hunters needed to know before they stepped into the trees. Knowledge was survival, and knowledge could live in any body that could hold it. This was not charity. It was calculus. Every person in the group who carried real knowledge, real skill, real function, was a person the group could not afford to lose. The elder with the bad hip, who could no longer walk the long distances, moved to the center of the camp and became the fixed point around which the tribe's memory organized itself. The young man whose lungs couldn't take the high elevations stayed with the women and children during the hardest hunts and became the one who knew, better than anyone, how to process and preserve what came back. The tribe did not carry dead weight, But they also understood, in the deepest practical sense, that what looked like dead weight from one angle often looked like something else entirely from another. But not every child was kept. And the record, the full, honest record, holds that too. In conditions of extreme resource scarcity, in the deep cold of a winter that had already taken 2 adults, when the group was moving fast through hostile terrain and every calorie was spoken for before it was caught, a child who could not survive without consuming resources the group sometimes did not survive. Not because the tribe was cruel. Because the tribe was a living thing trying to stay alive. And living things make the hardest calculations when the alternative is everyone dying instead of one. The mother was not excluded from this. She was at the center of it. And in every culture, in every part of the archaeological and anthropological record, what follows these moments is not nothing. There is burial. There is marking. There is the particular silence that falls over a group that has just done something that the group will carry. The grief was real. The necessity was real. Both of these things were true at the same time, and early humans did not have the luxury of resolving that tension. They simply lived inside it, the way they lived inside everything else that the world handed them without asking. The weak who survived, and many did, left something in the record that is easy to miss if the eyes are only looking for bones and tools. They left knowledge, the preparations that kept infections manageable. Those came from the ones who spent their lives close to the elder instead of out on the hunt. The roots that the tribe remembered across 3 generations of movement, those were memorized by the ones whose bodies kept them near the fire, while the strong ones moved through the world. The social bonds that held the group together through the hardest seasons, those were often maintained by the ones who had the most time and the most need to tend them. The weak did not only survive because the tribe carried them. The tribe survived in part because of what the weak carried. The child born thin and loud on that night, the one the elder turned in her hands and studied in the firelight, is still in the camp 3 years later. The legs never fully corrected. The walk has a pull to it, a drag on the left side that will never disappear. But the eyes. The elder noticed the eyes in the first week and said nothing to anyone except the mother. She simply began bringing the child close during the morning preparations, letting small hands touch the plants before they were used, saying the names quietly, once, and watching to see if the child held them. The child held them, every one. By 3 years old, that child knows things that the fastest hunter in the group does not know and will never know, because the fastest hunter never needed to sit still long enough to learn them. The tribe moves through a landscape that could kill them 100 different ways. The child with the dragging leg is one of the reasons it doesn't. The world was not gentle with weakness, but it was not as simple as the word survival of the fittest makes it sound. Fitness was never only one thing. It was never only the body that could run the farthest or hit the hardest. It was the whole system, every person in it, every function they carried, every kind of strength that existed in every kind of body. The tribe knew this, not as a philosophy. As a fact, they lived inside every single day.